Assalamu alaikum everyone. So, Gabriel Al Romani is going to finally address the fact that he had slandered the Sahabah during his debate with Mahdi Tidjani. He said he's going to cite authentic hadiths from the Sealed Nectar. So pretty much anyone with rudimentary Islamic knowledge is going to know what he's going to cite. Perhaps for him, the Sealed Nectar is advanced level work on the Seerah. He maybe doesn't know that it's basically a middle school level introduction to the Seerah. I'm sure he will mention the hadith of Aisha, where she discusses the 4 different types of nikah that existed in Jahiliyyah. Again, a hadith that we all know. So let me just preemptively respond to what he is likely to argue by explaining a few details of this hadith. First of all, you need to know what the word nikah means in Arabic. In Islamic usage, it means marriage, but linguistically, it means sexual intercourse. It's not even a polite word for it. If you don't understand Arabic, just check on Google Translate. So Aisha was discussing the forms of sexual intercourse that were taking place during Jahiliyyah. If you studied a bit further than the Sealed Nectar, you will also know that the women who participated in these acts were prostitutes, not average respectable women. I would suggest that Gabriel expand his reading material to include the History of Arabs Before Islam by Jawad Ali, the most eminent historian on the Jahiliyyah period. So in other words, we're not talking about a normal, socially acceptable practice that everyone participated in. Misrepresenting it as standard practice is, yes, a generalized slander. Were there people who committed those acts and subsequently embraced Islam and became Sahabah? Well, you're going to need to mention who they are. Otherwise, you are tarring them with an accusation for which you do not have proof. Regarding his statement about the Sahabah were making tawaf naked and used to see each other's naked bodies, I already covered in my original video the fact that whoever made tawaf naked were forced to do so by the Quraysh and cannot be blamed for that. Not to mention the fact that even under those coercive conditions, women still draped themselves in white cloth. And again, we do not know of any Sahaba who either did this or forced others to do it. You may think this doesn't matter, because after all, everyone embraced Islam eventually, right? So surely some of the Sahaba did this during Jahiliyyah. Well, that's not how it works. You don't get to assign sins to people willy-nilly just to make an argument. Look, we know about specific sins that were committed by the Sahaba during Jahiliyyah from their own mouths. Drinking alcohol, burying their daughters, highway robbery, and murder. But those are the only sins that we can responsibly assign to them. Do you understand how this works? The sins that they acknowledged that they did are the only ones that we can assign to them. That's how it works. If Gabriel had said the Arabs used to do such and such in Jahiliyyah, then that would have been correct. I would not have said anything. The Sahaba used to talk about the many wrong things that took place in the culture before Islam. But what Gabriel did was to explicitly assign the actions he mentioned to the Sahaba specifically. Gabriel also tarnished the name of al-Mu'mineen Juwayriyah bint al-Harith, suggesting that because she was taken as captive in the Battle of Bani Mustalik, that she therefore had a body count, thereby equating her with any modern woman who has committed zina and later converted. Juwayriyah was a widow after the battle, and upon being captured, she and her father appealed to Rasulullah ﷺ for her release. And it was precisely her noble stature and dignity that inclined the Prophet to marry her. There is no evidence and no reason to believe that Juwayriyah was sexually used prior to her marriage to our Prophet. He had no right to say that. The same goes for Maria the Copt. He accused her of having a body count. But even in his favorite book on Seerah, he should know that Maria was the daughter of nobility sent by the ruler of Egypt himself to the Prophet ﷺ, not just some random sex slave. But this is what Gabriel does. When he's called out on his ignorance, mistakes, and wrong understanding, he just doubles down. He has a fundamentally red pill interpretation of Islam, even though he claims to oppose red pill. He was literally just on the Three Muslims podcast, nodding his head and saying facts, when one of the hosts was spewing unfiltered red pill dogma that women only derive their value from the men she marries and has no independent value. He was called out on that too, but refused to denounce what was said. and he still hasn't. It doesn't matter if he says he isn't red pill, just like it doesn't matter if he says he has Islamic knowledge. The proof is in the pudding. The fact is he lacks knowledge, and part of that lack of knowledge causes him to hold red pill views, even if he calls it Qur'an and Sunnah. Okay, if he wants people to stop talking online without knowledge, then he should start with himself. This is today's note from the future's past. Wassalamu alaikum.